Stephen King's stories have been adapted countless times, from timeless classics like The Shining to modern blockbusters like IT. Yet, among them all, one film still stands apart as perhaps the most unsettling: Pet Sematary. Despite mixed critical reception at the time of its release, the 1989 adaptation has endured as a nightmare-fueled staple of King's cinematic legacy. Its themes of grief, mortality, and the terrifying consequences of tampering with death make it uniquely disturbing, even compared to more celebrated adaptations. A story that turns grief into horror. At its heart, Pet Sematary is a devastating story about a family destroyed not by the undead, but by their inability to accept death. When Gage Creed, his wife Rachel, and their children move into their new main home, they quickly learn of the local Pet Sematary, a place where neighborhood children have buried their lost companions for generations. But just beyond lies something far darker, an ancient burial ground with the power to bring the dead back to life. The cycle of horror begins when Lewis resurrects his daughter Ellie's beloved cat, Church, after a roadside accident. Though the cat returns, it is no longer the same, more vicious, more sinister. This should have been warning enough, but Lewis's grief over the loss of his young son, Gage, drives him to repeat the same mistake on a much more catastrophic scale. The terrifying revival of Gage Creed. Few horror scenes are as haunting as the moment when Gage is struck by a speeding truck, a tragedy that pushes Lewis past the breaking point. His decision to bring Gage back unleashes the film's most chilling sequences. The resurrected toddler, played with terrifying intensity by Miko Hughes, is both grotesque and heartbreaking. A child robbed of innocence and transformed into something monstrous. The scenes that follow, including Gage's brutal murder of neighbor Judd Crandall and his confrontation with his mother Rachel, remain among the most disturbing in King's cinematic canon. Watching Lewis, a father consumed by guilt, forced to kill his own son a second time is both tragic and horrifying, cementing Pet Sematary as a story that lingers long after the credits roll. Rachel's haunting past adds another layer of terror. While Lewis's choices drive the central tragedy, Pet Sematary also weaves in one of the most chilling subplots in King's adaptations: Rachel's traumatic childhood. Through flashbacks, viewers learn about her sister Zelda, who suffered from a debilitating illness and whose death left Rachel scarred for life. The grotesque imagery of Zelda, paired with Rachel's guilt over abandoning her sister in her final moments, creates a horror within the horror, one that feels deeply personal and psychologically unsettling. This subplot enriches the film, reminding audiences that death is not just frightening in the abstract, but can leave lifelong emotional scars. Zelda's ghostly presence is as terrifying as any resurrected corpse, embodying trauma that refuses to fade. Why Pet Sematary endures. While critics were divided upon its release, with some dismissing it as grim and exploitative, Pet Sematary has stood the test of time because it confronts its audience with the most primal fear of all: losing loved ones. Its horror is not in supernatural jump scares, but in the deeply human desperation to undo death at any cost, and the monstrous consequences that follow. Unlike other King adaptations that lean heavily on spectacle, Pet Sematary thrives on its raw emotional weight. The screenplay, written by King himself, stays true to the novel's bleak vision, ensuring that the film never strays from its central themes of grief, mortality, and the dangers of playing God. A creepy legacy that outshines its remake. The 2019 remake of Pet Sematary attempted to modernize the story, but lacked the unsettling intimacy of the original. While it delivered some shocking twists, it failed to capture the same emotional devastation that made the 1989 film unforgettable. For fans, the original remains the definitive adaptation, both a faithful rendering of King's novel and one of the creepiest explorations of death ever put on screen. Over 3 decades later, Pet Sematary continues to unsettle new generations of viewers. Its haunting mix of personal tragedy and supernatural horror proves that sometimes the scariest stories are not about the monsters outside, but about the choices we make when faced with unimaginable loss.